The wind roared like a wounded animal across the plains as the sun bled gold over the horizon. Dust Vale County held its breath the way dying men hold on to prayer, tight, desperate, trembling. A storm was rolling in, but not just in the sky, in the bones of the land, in the hearts of those who had buried more truth than bodies beneath this dirt that a lone rider cut through the wind. Elias Creed sat tall in the saddle, though his shoulders were heavy with memory. His coat snapped behind him like a torn flag, his hat pulled low against the stinging sand. The horse's hooves thudded a slow rhythm, like a heartbeat refusing to give up. There are debts the land remembers, the old folks used to say, and some are paid not in coin, but in pride. Elias knew that better than anyone that by the time he reached the outer gates of the Waldhorn estate, the sun had nearly slipped behind the mesas, leaving only a bruised violet glow. The mansion rose in the dim light like a relic from another lifetime. 3 stories of faded grandeur, cracked pillars, and windows that watched like cold eyes. That on the porch stood 5 tall figures in black dresses, veils drifting in the wind like mourning banners. The Waldhorn sisters, legends and warnings in equal measure. Maribel, the eldest, rigid as iron. Henrietta, sharp gaze, defender of the family's honor. Clara, second eldest, stoic, silent, unreadable. Ruth, the shadow, always in the background. And young Daisy, soft-eyed, the only spark of warmth in that line of stone-faced women. Elias dismounted slowly. He expected them to speak. They did not. Instead, a lawyer stepped forward, parchment in hand. He cleared his throat, his voice trembling as if he feared even speaking the dead man's words. By the final will and testament of Judge Oswald Waldhorn. He glanced at Elias with pity. Elias Creed shall serve the Waldhorn estate in manual labor, 1 full day every month, for the duration of 1 year, in order to settle the debt of his late father. The wind held a moment of silence. Then Maribel's voice slid through the air like a cold knife. The will says, you must service us monthly. No emotion, no shame, just law. Elias' jaw tensed, but he said nothing. He simply nodded once, pride buried, dignity swallowed, debt accepted, because in the end, he wasn't just paying for his father's mistakes, he was paying for his own. They put him to work before sunrise, mending fences splintered by storms, hauling rotten beams from the barn, shoeing stubborn maras that kicked like fury, repairing the roof while the sun scorched his neck until it blistered. The sisters watched him like guards at a prison. Maribel gave orders without ever glancing his way. Henrietta hovered, arms crossed, as if waiting for him to fail. Ruth sketched in her little notebook, pretending not to look but never missing a detail. Daisy brought water when she thought no one would notice. Her hands trembled when their fingers touched, but Clara stood at a distance, silent, stern, eyes unreadable. She was the only one who didn't treat him like a burden or a threat. She treated him like air, and somehow, that stung most of all. When night fell, he mounted his horse and rode away without a word. But all 5 sisters watched him go. He returned, again, and again, and again. Each time the humiliation felt heavier. Each time the gossip worsened. The Creed boy, serving 5 women? Shameful. I heard they make him eat outside with the animals. Judge Waldhorn is laughing in his grave. Elias ignored them. Pride was a luxury. Survival wasn't. Over time, he noticed things. The mansion was falling apart, not just the walls. The sisters rarely spoke to each other beyond duty. There was no laughter, no music, no warmth. A home built on power. Now surviving on ghosts. On his 3rd visit, something changed. Maribel invited him inside. The dining room was long and dimly lit, the table stretching like a quiet battlefield. They sat across from him, all 5, their faces half-shadowed by flickering lamp light. He ate slowly. Henrietta questioned his work. Ruth asked about the repairs. Daisy blurted out, have you ever been in love? Silenced, he set down his fork, the memories rising like smoke. Once, he said softly. But love's a horse that throws you if you grip it too hard. No one spoke, except Clara. She didn't say anything aloud, but her eyes shifted, and for the first time, she truly looked at him. Rain hit the windows like thrown pebbles. The mansion creaked and sighed like a tired woman. Clara sat at the piano in the grand parlor, fingers resting on silent keys. Her reflection trembled in the glass. Outside, lightning stitched the sky. She thought of promises broken, of the man who left her for money, of the town that mocked her, of the walls she built so high even she couldn't climb out. She pressed one soft note that it echoed like a prayer. Maybe, she whispered to the empty room. Servitude isn't always shame. Some debts were chains. Some were mirrors. Asterisk asterisk, he worked in silence, as always. But something was different. He lifted a heavy feed sack, and Clara moved to help. It slipped from her arms. Before it hit the ground, his hands caught it, steady, strong. Her breath caught. His fingers brushed hers. A spark. Small, quiet, real. Neither spoke, but her heart stumbled in her chest, and for the first time in years, she felt alive. Daisy saw it from the doorway and ran to tell Maribel. By sunset, the mansion was buzzing with hushed arguments behind closed doors. She cannot. He is beneath us. This cannot happen. Clara said nothing, but her hands, once steady, were trembling. Asterisk asterisk, he arrived at dawn, but something felt wrong. The main gates were closed, padlocked. No smoke from the chimney. No voices. Silence heavy as storm clouds. Then Maribel walked out, holding the will. Or what remained of it. She tore the document in half. Her eyes were flames. We don't need you anymore. The debt is paid. Leave. Elias didn't move, because behind her, he saw Clara, standing in the doorway, face pale, eyes blazing. She stepped forward, voice soft, but fierce enough to break the sky. That is not your choice, Maribel. The air shifted. The sisters froze. Even the wind went silent. Clara took another step. The will stands. He stays. Her eyes found Elias, and in that moment, servant and mistress disappeared. Only two broken souls remained. Thunder rolled across the plains. Lightning split the sky, and everything they had buried was about to rise. The final month began before the sun. The sky hovered in that fragile space between night and dawn, a soft bruising of lavender and ash. Elias rode in silence, his breath visible in the cold air, his heart unsteady in his chest. He was no longer the man who first crossed these gates. Shame no longer weighed on his shoulders. Something else did. Possibility. The mansion loomed ahead, silhouetted against the pale horizon. But unlike before, the windows glowed with light. Lamps burned in every room as if the house itself refused to sleep. The town watched him ride by. They say he's taking over the mansion. He put a spell on the Waltorn sisters. He'll ruin them like his father ruined theirs. I heard Clara wants him. Elias ignored the whispers, but one voice stopped him, slow, gravelly. Worn by years of law and regret, Sheriff Murdoch stepped from the shadows of the general store. Reins hooked in his hand. Creed. Elias halted his horse. You going back up there? For the last time, Elias said. The sheriff studied him. You keep your head low, son. Love and pride'll both get a man shot in this town. Elias nodded. I steady. I ain't here for pride anymore. He turned his horse and rode on. A storm was building. But not in the sky. I in the mansion. And inside every heart that lived in it. The barn smelled of hay and old memories. Elias entered, expecting tools or orders, something cold, distant, formal. Instead, he found a sealed envelope on a barrel, his name written in elegant script. Elias, he hesitated, then opened it. When this began, I thought our father's will was a curse. Now I think it was mercy, cruel, strange mercy. It brought a broken man into a broken home, and showed us that walls built from grief cannot stop the sun from rising. If you feel even a flicker of what I do, meet me on the east veranda at dawn. Clara, his hands trembled, not from fear, from hope. Dawn spilled gold across the prairie, turning the land into a quiet sea of light. Clara stood waiting, hair loose, face bare, no armor, no veil, just a woman standing in the open light for the first time in years. When he stepped onto the veranda, she didn't speak, neither did he. They simply stood there, two silhouettes against the sunrise. The air thick with years of silence that suddenly felt unnecessary. She stepped closer. He didn't move. Her forehead rested gently against his. A long, quiet exhale and no kiss. No desperate touch, just stillness, just truth. Maybe this is what healing looks like, she whispered. His voice was rough. Maybe it is. In that fragile moment, The mansion doors slammed open behind them. Maribel stormed forward, eyes blazing. Henrietta close behind, fists clenched. Daisy and Ruth lingered in the doorway, uncertain, afraid. You dare? Maribel hissed. Clara lifted her head, calm. Yes. You would shame us? I have lived my whole life in shame, Clara said softly. Not because of him, because of us. Because we have let pain rule us. Because we buried ourselves in this mansion and called it dignity. Henrietta stepped forward. He is a servant. No, Clara said, stepping between them. He is the only one who has served this house with grace. The wind rose. Maribel reached into her coat and pulled out the second copy of the will, her last weapon. She raised it like a blade. This paper is the only reason he sets foot here. Without it, he is nothing. Clara's eyes softened, and in one quiet, devastating moment, she took the will from Maribel's hand and tore it in half. The world stopped. No paper owns a soul, she said. Not his, not ours. Maribel stared at her, stunned. Henrietta stepped back as if struck. Ruth's hand trembled over her heart. Daisy began to cry. Elias said nothing, but in that moment, he knew. Clara Waldhorn was the bravest person he had ever known. That night, the storm finally broke. Lightning split the sky in violent white veins and struck the old stables. The drywood went up like tinder, flames clawing toward the heavens. Someone get water. Hurry. The horses. Screams echoed through the dark as the sisters ran into the rain with buckets, skirts soaked, faces wild with fear. Without hesitation, Elias sprinted into the fire. Elias. Clara screamed. Smoke burned his lungs. Heat seared his arms. He cut ropes, shoved open stalls, slapped the panicked horses free. A beam cracked above him. Clara ran in. He grabbed her arm. What are you doing? I won't let you die alone. She coughed through smoke. Another beam crashed. He shielded her with his body. They stumbled toward the exit, flames snapping at their heels. They burst through the smoke just as the roof collapsed behind them. They collapsed in the mud, coughing, choking, holding each other like lifelines. The mansion glowed with firelight, but the storm rain began to fall, hard and healing. The flames hissed, shrinking under the downpour. The fire died. But something new was born in its ashes. Clara trembled in his arms. He lifted her chin. She didn't look away, and this time, he kissed her slow, reverent, devastating. Her fingers curled into his soot-streaked shirt. She kissed him back with the ache of years she had never let herself feel when they pulled away. Breathless, bruised, covered in ash. She smiled soft, real, alive. Smoke rose in thin gray ribbons from the blackened remains of the stables. The sun emerged through clouds, gentle and forgiving. The mansion still stood, scarred, but standing, just like them. The sisters stood together on the porch. He approached, uncertain. Maribel spoke first, not sharp, not cold, tired. Human, we're wrong. Henrietta nodded slowly. Maybe it's time we stop holding on to ghosts. Daisy smiled shyly at Elias, eyes full of acceptance. Ruth squeezed Clara's hand, for the first time in years. They looked like a family. Elias turned to Clara. My debt's paid. I know. Her voice was steady. You're free. He hesitated. Pain flickered in his chest. Then, I should go. She nodded, but her eyes betrayed the fear. He took her hands. I'll come back, he said softly. Not for duty. He leaned in. For you. He mounted his horse, turned, rode into the rising sun. Clara stood at the top of the steps, hair loose, face glowing in the morning light, and the Waldhorn mansion, once a prison, now felt like breath. They say he came to settle a debt. But some debts are not written in ink. Some are carved into the heart, waiting to be healed by mercy disguised as burden. He served the sisters 12 times before the year was done. But each month, he was also serving something greater, forgiveness. And she, who once carried pride like armor, learned that the bravest act is to open the door and let love walk in. So hear me. Wanderer, when life demands more of you than you think you can bear, do not curse the weight. Perhaps it is not there to break you, but to lead you to the one place you were always meant to be seen, loved, and free. Some chains are not meant to hold you. They are meant to guide you home.